So thank you for inviting me. I do want to first sort of really disclose that I'm not an energy justice expert or just expert in energy at all. So I was hoping that I was wondering if this was going to be a little bit smaller and we could have a little bit more of discussion so you could also help fill in some blanks that are not part of my expertise. Um, what I prepared for today is really mostly based on what feminist science and technology studies work does. And the way that I think about it is that it can offer a tool or a framework, concepts to challenge the assumptions that we currently have. That these assumptions, of course, are the ones that have gotten us to this place in which we have such tremendous inequities and injustices regarding energy and many other social and environmental issues. So I hope that you just, bear with me and ask me questions. But this talk is more like a, history of philosophy of science and a very, very brief intro to to our assumptions in feminist science and technology studies. Great. So I do want to see your faces. So great. Okay. Okay. So first, we're going to start with some foundational concepts and some assumptions, and then we're going to have a couple discussion questions if we have time, and just close. So a basic premise in the philosophy of feminist science studies is that, as many other philosophies of science, is that all knowledge is situated, partial, and political. And this is crucial. It's very basic. Situated means that I can only know from where I am standing, right? From my location. And that involves geographic, temporal, spatial, but also socio-historical, how I'm placed in society, right? And so we all are situated in different places, different times, and so we have different situated knowledges. It's also partial, right? Because I can only see what's within my perspective. I can only see what is approachable through the tools, the frameworks, the technologies and devices I have, right? So even in science, for instance, looking through the lens of a microscope is very different than looking at a phenomenon through X-rays or remote sensing, right? So in that way, it's also partial. It's not all encompassing, right? And it's political, right? It has power. It's created through power, and it has an effect. And so we have to be very careful to be attentive to the power that it carries. Um, this also is very critical to challenging notions of what some feminists call like the God's view or bird's eye view of a phenomenon in which it's supposed to be your view is like nowhere and it's completely objective. And so we say it's not, it is actually situated, but that doesn't mean that everything is relative. We can't have any orientation in this world. What we're saying is it's important to be upfront and critical of what these positions, these situations are, and what are the tools and devices and frameworks and languages and theories that we have, the concepts that we use in order to know, to be very uh, attentive, right, to what we're able to see and what we may not be able to see. It's also been, this premise has been very crucial to studies of inequities and injustices, particularly through theories who have thought about the subjugated knowledges of people who've been oppressed because they're not considered normal, right? They're not at the center, they're generally marginalized. And so this has really reclaimed and made an argument to really try to see also from those perspectives because they offer something that dominant, central, more privileged views cannot see. And so to really understand a phenomenon, we really need to take multiple views and center sometimes those that have been oppressed or marginalized. Okay. So as I said, I'm not an expert in energy. But anyway, I recently saw this movie about, well, it's a story sort of, in fact, like how Moby Dick was inspired. You've probably heard of it. It was about whaling and the importance in oil to illuminate, right, as a source of energy. Um, and I thought it was really interesting because it's about, of course, hunting and epic tales of man conquering nature, right? The largest mammals in the world, right? Animals, and how humans, man, can conquer them, right? To advance our projects, our ways of living. And so what's going to this exploration of what is the the social and historical context of science, modern science, what is based on Western philosophy, on a capitalist project. It has been, well, we live under a capitalist system. It's part of growth, of models of creating value. It is very much supported by militaristic projects. It doesn't have to be, but it often is. We know, for instance, here in the States, a lot of science is driven and funded for militaristic purposes to begin with, and then maybe it is used for alternative purposes in society, right? It's also based on white supremacy, going back also modern science. It sort of originated in the 16th century, 17th century in Europe. White supremacy was, of course, very much the mainstream ideas, right? The dominant ideas. Patriarchal. In fact, we still know that up to very recently, for instance, women were not even accepted into universities. We still see so much difference between the positions and privileges that males have, for instance, in the academy as researchers, it's as knowledge holders than women. And it's also very, very important, and this is crucial for our environmental crisis that we live now in, is that it's human-centered, especially, um, again, those humans that live in, we can say, the minority world, right? Like the global north or well, yeah, the global north is another way of saying it, right? But in this way, science is meant to serve the project or the purposes of these agendas. And something that's very basic, and I don't know if you are all familiar with this history, but I just kind of wanted to put it back because it's very central also to when we look at the history of our fields and of science, is that here's Rene Descartes, and that it's based on the dualism of mind and body. And of course, there's also been so much literature that challenges these ideas, but they're still very, very prevalent and very deeply rooted. And this is that, we have this dualistic thinking is very typical or very representative of Western thought. And not only is there a duality, but also that they're not equal, they're not even. So for instance, in reason, emotion in our society, well, reason is valued more highly, the mind over the body, human over the non-human, other species or the non-human world, man over woman, white versus non-white or communities of color, culture over nature, right? Civilization over nature, expansion, progress, competition over collaboration and nurture. And this is sounds very simplistic, but it keeps coming over and over in our ways of thinking. So this has led, as many philosophers or scholars from of science, that science and technology, of course, are not neutral and they're not exactly objective, but they can also be, they have a foundation of, of serving a purpose that is actually violent sometimes. Um, when these ideas of what science was and what it could do, man was separated, and I use man, but it's humans, right? Man was separated from nature, and so this idea of interconnectedness, of ecology, of interbeing, of symbiosis was completely severed, right? And so now we have individuals, we have men, humans as a separate society from their environment. Something that was, it's very prevalent in so many epistemologies and philosophies throughout the world, right? But at this point in time, it was really cut. And right here, for instance, I put an image of Francis Bacon, who created is known for the scientific method, for empiricism. And part of his method was the way in which, even in his writings, he uses sometimes words and expressions that are in fact violent, that talk about extracting nature's secrets. And nature here means the non-human world. It also means woman. It also means communities of color, right? And so not only it gave permission for humans or men, because men were the only ones who could become scientists at the time, right, or hold knowledge, to know, but to also do it sometimes in violent ways, right? And so we see a huge expansion of science, of knowledge, for instance, through colonialism and empire. Here I put up an image of a witch, right? Because witches had this knowledge that was that it was not seen as scientific. And it was also, they were deemed, as evil, barbaric, heretics who had knowledge, and they were not supposed to have it because the only valuable knowledge was that was scientific. And these other ways of being that were more in line with the web of life were sorry, I have something, were chased after, right? Another image here, right, is the colonialism, right? And how this was not only for scientific purposes, but it was even like part of a divine of God's what do you call it? Like God's mandate for humans, right? For Western Europeans to expand and to extract and to colonize. And yeah. So what I really want to emphasize then is, in this very short time, is just to give you a little bit of a history of what are things that we need to point out when we do research and when we look at our fields, is really getting to know them and really looking at the assumptions that are at the center. So, for instance, in general, this idea of science, and of course, I'm being very broad here to make my point, but it's based on dominion, right? Of dominating the other, of dominating nature, of showing humans' superiority, of extracting value for our projects and our purposes, our ways of being, of expanding, of growth, of taking over, of taking more, of assuming that what is out there in the world is for us to take, and to take as much as you can before others show up or before somebody else wants or needs something, right? So it's also very competitive. It's based on competition. This image right here, of the Hoover Dam, I think, exemplifies very much these ideas, right? This was built during the Great Depression. It was a major project that, was to to expand cities, to bring in economic growth. It has had a very severe environmental impact over the species, over the river, over the delta. The Colorado River, we now know, is almost well, there's severe concerns of it disappearing. Um, and it's all to create, right, economic growth and expansion, and to live with nature, not exactly in a sustainable way, right? Here we have another picture of what could be seen as a violent use of science and technology, right? Vegas in the desert, and in this place that is mostly focused on pleasure, immediate um, uh, immediate pleasure, right? In capitalism, and science is often uh, driven by immediacy, right? Not thinking about waste, not thinking about future of generations ahead. For instance, like certain indigenous cultures, they think about 7 generations in the future, right? And that's just a general guideline of how you make decisions and live with the land and your environment, your home. Um, Private property is also central, and this is really important. It's critical because there is no commons, right? It's all privatized, and it's not equally privatized, but it's mainly consolidated and very unevenly, and which leads to tremendous inequalities, as you all know. On individualism, so there is no there it it is against ideas or notions of, as I said, of the commons, of the collective or community. And this is also very important because it's about what you can do for yourself, not what you can do for your community, or of caring for each other. So for instance, also like energy, as I've heard Natalie talk before, is not seen as a human right, but it's as a commodity, right? Because what we need to do is create profits and create markets. So these are sort of main assumptions that are part of the legacies of science and technology. They're not exclusive to energy, but to all of the way in which we do science. So I have some questions, but I don't know if you'd like to move on. I'm sure that Natalie has wonderful discussion points too, and maybe we could address these at the end. Elsa, what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much for that, really helpful background. I think that's exactly, yeah, where we don't have a lot of these things, as you're mentioning, it's not really the foundation of how we think about energy or some of the more kind of engineering or science heavy fields. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
really helpful to have that background. And yeah, and now we'll kind of shift over to some of Natalie's work, which I think kind of speaks to where the rubber hits the road with some of this theory, and then how it actually is then being manifested in terms of the inequity that we see in the energy space. So yeah, I'll just briefly read Natalie's bio and then we'll hear from her. So
Yeah.
yeah, Natalie Espinoza, Program Manager of the Energy Coalition. Natalie leads community outreach and engagement initiatives for the Energy Coalition and facilitates their Environmental Justice Advisory Committee. With over a decade of experience in energy efficiency program education and engagement, Natalie is dedicated to advancing environmental justice and sustainability in underserved communities. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. I am okay, there we are. I'm struggling to find the share button. Yes, thank you so much for the introduction. And so I'll just start off by saying that I was connected with you all from working with Maida and Sarah over at the Feminist Research Institute. I'm an environmental justice leadership fellow. I've been working with UC Davis since oh gosh, September, I believe it. Oh no, not last September, last May. And so I'm really excited to get to speak with you all and talk a little bit about the work that I do. And I want to let you all know that I am based in the Los Angeles region. And so those are the ancestral lands of the Tongva people here in Long Beach. And so I've had about 13 years of experience in energy efficiency programming. And so while I guess this is more of a caveat about me, I'm a storyteller more than I am an instructor at the end of the day. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is kind of just explaining to you all some of the programs that I've been working on for the past few years. And then we can kind of extract some of the questions from there about any themes or anything along the lines of how we're working against the systems that have been put in place that have made some of the programs that I implement have to be created in the way that they've been created. So I'll just say, yeah, as a reiteration, managing outreach and engagement efforts across various programs. And in the last 13 years, I've kind of seen a real time transformation in the very specific sector of energy efficiency. And today I was actually this morning participating in a DEI training for the California Revolving Energy Efficiency Committee. It's called CAKE. I can never fully say out what that stands for. But I have recently taken on a role with one of my colleagues as participating in that group to really give some feedback on the way that energy efficiency programs are created in the state of California. And one of the things that training we talked about today was how originally in the state and really I think across the nation, energy efficiency policy and programming came from the thought for utilities to manage the amount of energy load that they were going to have to be responsible for and what was their bottom line. If their customers were using less energy, then they were able to continue to make more money off of them because then they could come up with other ways to up the prices, up their what's the word I'm looking for? Rates, the utility rates. And it really became about saving the utilities on energy burden because they weren't able to provide the energy necessary for all of their customers. So if they put the burden on their customers to do energy efficiency, that helped them as a utility with their bottom line. And in the last, that has then evolved now into measuring how this can actually help the customers and help folks with their energy burdens that they're dealing with it within their own homes and within their businesses. But what we're dealing with now today is the fact that the metrics started during a time when it was about the utilities managing their energy load. So the thing I want you all to think about as I'm talking about the programs that I implement here is are the things that we're measuring to help the customers, to help the folks in California that these programs are impacting, or are these maybe a leftover from when these programs were designed more to assist the utilities with their energy burden and what they were not able to then provide to their customers? Also, my dog is right next to me and he is snoring really loud, so I apologize if you hear that. But okay, I will move on from there and talk about one of the programs that I implement with the County of Los Angeles. This is the Healthy Stores Refrigeration Program. And this program is now in its second iteration, but we started it back in 2020. And so this program was created by the California Department of Food and Agriculture, actually, because they had an intention here of assisting small businesses to replace their energy inefficient refrigerators with energy efficient refrigerators, with the caveat. So these refrigerators were given to stores for free, that they be stocked with healthy California sourced minimally processed foods. So this was really talking about creating a program that was with the intentions of meeting that intersection of the energy use of a store as well as the needs of a community to have access to healthy food when they're located within a food desert. So from there, this is a program that myself at the Energy Coalition implemented, but we had to, I don't want to say cobble together, but to be able to provide these resources to the stores, it wasn't something that we were able to do with just one form of funding. We had to come together and find partners and funders from many different aspects to be able to provide a holistic program to go past just the energy efficiency side of things and just, past just the food side of things. So California Department of Food and Agriculture to provide the funding for the refrigerators themselves, the County of Los Angeles to be able to provide a framework for how we could organize this. People don't talk as much about the admin side of what it takes to provide these kinds of programs to folks. Just filling out paperwork takes a lot of work, and being able to track all of this information. And one of the things I always point out is how programs such as this one have a intense scrutiny of every dollar that is spent to provide these resources to folks that are most in need of removing this energy burden. And then, when we look at other things, the question is, where is the audit of that money that's being spent for other sectors or other aspects? I'll leave it vague. The other grantor that we worked with was the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. They have a community partnership grant that they do every year or every program cycle, and it's mostly focused on education. And so this is where we were able to get some additional funding to provide educational resources, because we didn't just want to provide a refrigerator and say, okay, this is going to be better for you. Good luck with that, and then move on from there. And then we also worked with a now defunct company called Arca Recycling that was very dedicated on making sure everything was recycled to the utmost standards, so that we weren't just taking an inefficient refrigerator and tossing it in the dump. We needed to be able to make sure that then the extraction that happened with that original refrigerator was managed correctly, so it didn't go on to then poison, folks that are living next to dumps as well. And then we also worked with the Los Angeles Food Policy Council as a local community-based organization with strong connections to stores, and then with strong connections with educational materials for folks to learn. And then ourselves to be working out there and walking to get the stores. So as I mentioned, this was meant to serve small corner stores. I think the key here is we weren't looking to serve the stores and folks that had access to information. We really wanted to work with those folks that didn't have as much access to finding out about programs such as ours. So just a key thing, the store needed to be in low income, low access neighborhoods. They needed to accept EBT, and we needed to have a willingness from them that they would stock that healthy food. This is how we determined that low income, low access disadvantaged community requirement. So this is taking some research that happened back in 2019 from the US Department of Agriculture to provide for us their food access maps. And then from there, we were able to use those designations to find out which areas would be best suited for this program, as well as the climate investment web map, just to find out the census tracts of where the folks that most needed this program were going to be. We didn't want to hit neighborhoods that had already received programs like these, or that are not carrying the energy burden that some of our other neighborhoods in Los Angeles County were facing. And then our initial outreach really had to go with community-based partners, word of mouth. A lot of our stores is an interesting community that a small business store owner is. We often find they have friends that also own stores nearby, cousins that own stores in other parts of the neighborhoods. And so that was actually really helpful. We also got on the news. That was really exciting. And then we got a plethora of phone calls, people wanting new refrigerators. And then we really used maps. And from there, we deployed staff to just walk and in the neighborhoods that we knew were going to be eligible for our program, and let the stores know, hey, the county did some research. We believe you're eligible for this program. Please come participate. You'll get a free refrigerator. Through this program, our goal was 80. We got 84 stores, and each store was eligible for 2 refrigerators. They let us know if they wanted 2 or not. We were able to provide 141 new refrigerators, and then we did not make it a requirement to recycle an old refrigerator to receive this. So from an energy standpoint, we were technically adding load to some of our store owners, but it was a cost benefit here of being able to determine whether it was more important for the stores to receive a refrigerator that was going to be of service to them for much longer and provide that healthy food access to the food desert communities versus the energy load here. It's one of the things that I have never seen a program before this that has to do with energy in any aspect forego counting energy savings as the number one thing that we were trying to do. The important thing was to get customers reached instead of energy savings counted. So that's a really unique thing that you don't see in energy efficiency programming at this point. But we were able to claim a few savings if a store was able to recycle. So we were excited that 30 stores did want to do that with us. Also, this was a program that had a very, very small budget. We didn't have that much money to be able to have staff go out. So we worked with SoCal Green Path Career Fellows and then Climate Corps AmeriCorps Fellows. And so we were dependent upon other programs together to get this program completed as well. I don't think either one of these programs are called this anymore. As politics change, these programs often have to change and their names and focuses also have to change. So I do have new fellows as I do have new iterations as well. But just to give an idea of the kinds of stores we're working with, Lupita's Market had old, huge refrigerators. She was making runs for new produce 3 times a week. Once she got her new refrigerators, that went down to a 1 time a week produce run because she was no longer throwing away product that was not lasting in her refrigerators. And then George over here had the community food bank. His store is a pay what you can kind of store. So on top of it providing healthy food to a food desert, he was also providing a resource for low-income folks to be able to have healthy food in their homes. And he mentioned that he often takes refrigerators from like Ralph's and Vaughn's that no longer work. And that's what he will have in his store. And so they are supremely inefficient. So we were really happy to help him. And so happy to have that happen. And then we also did educational site visit and pop-ups to both educate our store owners and educate the community on healthy food eating. We had store pop-ups we had 68 pop-ups. We did additional collaborations with LA County, and we just had community members from all over the place getting to see the good word of energy efficiency and healthy eating. So that was the Healthy Stores program. I think I'll just continue on to another program that I work on called the Bassett Avocado Heights Advanced Energy Community. This program is funded mostly by the California Energy Commission through their EPIC grant funding program. I want to talk a little bit about EPIC grants. For the most part, we call this program Bassett. Bassett is more unique than some of the other programs. EPIC grants are usually meant for research. And in the past, they have a much higher occurrence of utilities using those grants to research new technology. So things like hydroelectric, new technology there. And there has been a lot of questions in the past about how that research that these utilities are using these dollars for is negatively impacting communities, because for a long time you would get an extra point on your application if your project was funded in an area that was considered a disadvantaged community. And it started to be that they would just do certain research projects in those communities, and then they'd never talk to the community. The community didn't necessarily get to have a say in whether that project was happening in their community. And then once things were completed, the question was what was happening with that technology that was now left there. Granted, anecdotal, don't hold me to any of that, but that is what my understanding of all of this is. And so Bassett as an advanced energy community is a bit more unique, and it is something that also launched in 2020. Side note, don't launch an outreach project in the middle of a global pandemic that is also highly impacted by climate change as you're trying to do these kinds of things. But we started in 2017 collecting data for our community to see if it was a community that wanted this kind of project in it, and if it was a community that would like an advanced, some of this advanced energy to happen for them. It had many aspects to this, but the main thing I've been working on is the Advanced Homes Project, which was getting folks free solar panels and battery storage on their home, plus some additional amenities. So I had this in English and Spanish because it was outreach slides that I used for other events. The area that we did this project in is mostly in the city of La Puente in the San Gabriel Valley of Southern California. But we did also touch on parts of Whittier, City of Industry, West Covina, Baldwin Hills, or Baldwin Park, and South El Monte and El Monte. This is our original service territory that we were trying to outreach to. It is a mostly Latino population. They have a median income level of $60,000 a year, and they are surrounded by 3 different freeways and the largest battery recycling plant west of the Mississippi. This has been a massive project area for that battery recycling plant because they wanted it shut down. But with California passing their EV laws in that we need to have only EVs sold, I think after 2025 or 2035, I think it is, that comes with batteries, and electric vehicles have batteries in them that will then need to be recycled. And so this recycling plant is not going anywhere. And it is going to continue to affect the air quality for this community for a long time. So getting this community to a advanced energy status where they could have resilient product or resilient technology put onto their homes so that they could breathe clean air and not be displaced due to these policies that have been put in place, things that they had no control over, like batteries, battery recycling plants, and roadways being installed, is important because they shouldn't have to give up their homes. So we were able to do additional technologies for them in their homes on top of the solar installations. We had a goal of 50, but it was really hard. Our program eligibility required that folks were homeowners, but also low income, and also had roofs that had been replaced in the last 10 years. And so that is where I'm talking about how some of our energy policy is written in a way that it almost feels like is not rooted in reality, because offering a program for homeowners and then asking for low-income homeowners in Los Angeles County, and then to also have a roof that had been replaced in the last 10 years feels a little, I don't know, it feels a little crazy saying it out loud. I'm like, in what world would a low-income homeowner have replaced their roof in the last 10 years and be eligible for our program? So it took a lot of work, but we were able to go out and find some really good participants. In addition to all of this, as interesting as it sounds, even with the battery factor there, we also were able to provide electric vehicle charging installed in people's homes. But we didn't want to just install it in one home and leave it there for that one family. The intention here was for it to be a community-based charger so that the community could have access to this charger, so that folks could, if they had EVs and didn't necessarily participate in our program, they now had a new place to charge their vehicle as well. Like I said, way too many slides. So this is what we were talking about with the services provided. This is the eligibility requirement, just to drill home what it means to be low income in the state of California to participate for these programs. 1 to 2 people in a household need to make up to $40,000 a year, which is both. It's just kind of hard to think about that person then also owning a home at the same time. And then they also needed to live in our areas. So we did have to expand our area. So if you remember, our original area was just around this area here, and we've expanded to the participating cities to be able to continue on with our project. So, okay, so that was the Bassett project, where we're trying to, to sum it up, provide folks with the necessary means to have a resilient home in an area that is going to experience, I think, above 90 extreme heat days moving forward. That's right next to that battery recycling plant that is going to have to deal with rising utility rates. I will also say anecdotally this week, we received 3 different phone calls from homeowners whose power was shut off because of the fires. And then for whatever reason, their solar panels didn't turn back on. Their batteries were miswired. And we've had to deal with also that aspect of going back to homes that were already built to be resilient. That has been the approved resiliency measures for their homes, and make sure that they were still having that energy go into their home so that they could live comfortably as well. Yeah, it feels it's a wild time to be in Southern California. That's what I will say. Okay. One more thing I wanted to talk with you all about that I think may have a little bit more to do with policy today than anything else I've spoken about today. This is the Southern California Regional Energy Network. The SoCalREN is funded by California ratepayer dollars. So those are that public purpose charge that we all pay on our utility bills. If we are customers of Edison, PG&E, or San Diego Gas and Electric. And then they fund these programs here. SoCalREN, for a really long time, was only doing finance programs, multifamily programs, and public sector programs. In the last year, their business plan has been approved to do a plethora more of programs that they have submitted for. So something that I want to point out about SoCalREN is that it was a brand new concept in 2013, the regional energy networks in the state of California. Because before then, all those public purpose rates that we were all paying were going into programs that then those same utilities were designing and implementing. So back in 2013, you found a program that provided you with free LED light bulbs. It was most likely a program that Southern California Edison had created, and then you had to go through them to figure all that out. So through some proceedings, local governments said, hey, we feel we should be the ones implementing those programs. Here's our ideas. And this California Public Utilities Commission has approved of that in the form of regional energy networks. And in that same ruling is where we were able to do community choice aggregators as well. Again, I don't claim to be a full expert in all of that. And if I've messed any of that up, anyone is welcome to call me out. But this is what my understanding has been so far. So like I mentioned, in 2023, SoCalREN was approved to do a lot more programs. And one of those programs that they were given funding to do is something called the Community-Based Design Collaborative, which is looking to iterate further on who is actually creating programs for Californians to be able to access through those ratepayer dollars. So my I totally forgot to mention, the Energy Coalition is a 501c3 nonprofit that implements energy programming. We got started in education and have iterated on to do all of these other programs. Totally forgot about that part. That's why I do all this work. So we were selected to implement as well this community-based design collaborative. And so the goal and intent of this collaborative is to encourage community involvement in energy efficiency programming, delivery, and design. We are looking to bring together community-based organizations, CBOs, to be the stewards of their communities, to let us know what these new energy programs should be looking like, and these programs become more relevant to community needs. So what we're doing right now is working with the partners to develop a framework for how SoCalREN can work with CBOs to identify and fund locally focused energy programs. We're asking them to partner with SoCalREN to share their insights with us about their community needs, to consider pilot parameters, so a pilot project, and the types and the cost that those programs can have. Sorry, my light is right in my eye. And then submit these program ideas to the California Public Utilities Commission as well. And if it's approved, launch this pilot as well. So This was funded through the SoCal Ren, like I mentioned, to facilitate community involvement in program design. This is a part as well of the CPUC's Environmental and Social Justice Action Plan. Oh, I didn't realize this got messed up. And SoCal Ren, like I mentioned, has been around for about 10 years working on a specific set of programs, and they were tasked with coming up with a new way of coming up with these programs. SoCal Ren itself is administered by the County of Los Angeles. There are many other regional energy networks in Southern California, or in California, and they are all administered by local governments in some form or another. I think the closest one to UC Davis is going to be the Rural Ren, and I'm not entirely sure who's implementing that one. That one just got approved like 2 months ago. And then there's also the Bay Area Ren. Yes, and then there's 3C Ren in Ventura County as well. So many Rens. Also totally unaware of who's in the room right now, so I may be speaking to the choir right now. Okay, and so how we're looking to collaborate is to have our CBOs feel very comfortable, obviously letting us know about what their needs are and prioritizing that accountability to them, that this is not just another community listening session that nothing will come from. We are also looking to build up everybody's capacity on everything I've just mentioned about how California makes these decisions, because we did not want to be we didn't want to leave out CBOs that weren't energy focused. We wanted to make sure people that had backgrounds just in the community health or in air quality or in any one of those, any sector really that could have anything tied to energy would be able to participate with all of us. And we are going to have 5 meetings. Our first meeting is in 2 weeks with our CBO partners. We're looking to have those communications be facilitated and respectful, and then working through community outreach strategy, how we will be weaving environmental justice throughout this process of building these new programs. Also talking about that program budgeting and make sure folks know what it takes to budget these types of programs in California. We want to make sure they know what types of energy efficiency programs already exist and bring together those proposals and that evaluation and selection for them. And what we would really like to have here is an informed, equitable framework for designing energy efficiency programs, and be able to do these kinds of things across all of the regional energy networks. And SoCal Ren is just the pilot territory for all of this. So we got started early last year. It took us quite some time, but we now have 8 CBOs that have signed on across 4 different counties in Southern California. We have 3 in Ventura County, 2 in LA County, 2 in Kern County, and 1 in San Bernardino County. We unfortunately had 1 more in San Bernardino County that had to drop out for various reasons this year. And we really want to bring them all together pretty soon. We're going to have our first meeting in Lancaster to be able to have folks come in person and go from there. Anyway, that was a lot. So I wanted to go ahead and open up that discussion. I could stop sharing my screen or go back to any slides if anyone had any questions about that or anything along those lines. I hope this was helpful or informative for you all today in any way.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. Yeah, I think this is kind of have some of the really big picture questions and underlying concepts, and then really right into the nitty-gritty of what's happening on the ground right now. So yeah, we can open it up for questions from everybody. I think maybe I'd like to start with just asking, since we have such different perspectives from each of you of kind of how to approach this question of energy justice, and there's, a lot of effort being done by community groups, by the state, by researchers of trying to kind of start to kind of, what's the right word, kind of break down some of these really big fundamental injustices that are baked into the very way that we think about science, think about research, think about resources. So seeing these kind of really practical applications of how people are trying to do that, I'm curious how each of you would react. Is it up to par? Is it meeting the how deep rooted these questions are, or how might it be changed in order to do that more effectively?
As I said, I'm not an expert in energy, but I do think that a lot of the interest or investment in energy is towards greater production of energy. And so to me, that requires more extraction and exploitation of our natural world and of laborers, communities who live in different places and um, uh, as well as of course other species, right? It's a multi-species endeavor. And so I would really question the logics of growth, of indefinite growth, I mean, today we don't even think about the Earth as our limit, but thinking about even other planets, right? And satellites, right? I think to me it's just such a contrary to creating a more livable world. So how much energy do we truly need when we ask who are we really talking about? And so I would advocate for questioning that paradigm, that system, and thinking about even ways of degrowth, for instance, because I don't think that uh, this this way of thinking of more and thinking that technology will always be a fix um, is the answer. So I would just central question challenge that.
Yeah, thank you. Natalie?
Well, I think that what I've seen more lately is different organizations having to kind of write it in that it needs to be done differently. I'll say for our even the Healthy Stores program, we had to write in an additional aspect of education to make sure people were aware of what exactly was going on here, because there was a one goal, and the goal was to change the refrigerators, and that was it. And so basically, what I think I'm getting at more is that if we don't look at things from a holistic approach, which I think is what Maida was kind of getting at anyway, it's like being more holistic in what it is that we're trying to accomplish is really where we need to be going. And I see it happening like incrementally, like very, very small little lines written into those RFPs, the program requests, that I'm like, okay, there was one line there, and I'm ready to design my entire program off that one line asking for equity, because otherwise everything is just focused on growth, growth, growth. It's what I'm seeing as well. I think I answered the question.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, one question in the chat: can we reform or revolutionize our energy system to deliver the benefits we need without being motivated by profit? Do you see the barriers as being mainly ideological or technical? I think that's for both of you.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that first, it's very difficult to separate technologies from ideologies, right? Technologies are funded and pursued and developed with particular values and systems, right? So separating them is difficult. Today, in the way we have technologies, they're owned by companies, they work under models of profit. Can we change that? Yes, we can change that. And for sure, I think that when I say that technology is, well, I don't think that technology, the way that we use it right now, the way in which it is owned and the power that it creates, how it's so uneven, I think that it's going to continue to reproduce and exacerbate inequities. For sure, we can absolutely change that. And I hope that we do. Natalie, would you like to add something?
Ditto. I definitely agree with you, Maida. I think that I do think that there is a bit more on the ideological part of it, because I think that gets to the main conversation that we were asked today, which is that we need to be anti-capitalist. If we're continuing to look at energy as a way that somebody can make money and someone can be, making a profit off of something that, folks having energy in their home and having access to warmth, or having access to all these things, is in my opinion, a human right, that more than anything else. And so I think that is where, if we're constantly looking at building these programs to save somebody a buck, then we're not ever going to get there, because that's why I love my refrigeration program more than anything else, because it's not about saving energy. It's about making sure people have access to healthy food, and that these store owners that are actually providing a really important, through line to building community, are able to do that, and they don't have to worry about the fact that they're using a refrigerator that Safeway threw away 10 years ago. That kind of mentality as well. So that's my opinion.
Great. Yeah. I think Bob, Goimer, and I've seen a couple things in the chat from you, but I think they haven't gone to the whole group. So yeah, I'm wondering if
Yeah. If
they
you
have
want, Elisa, I can make a few comments. I sent it to you because so I've been in this space for quite a while, and I have a very different view than many, particularly on how we manage what is energy justice and energy equity. I believe there's a whole lot we can do. Love to see what we're doing, what has been done in the South for there's refrigeration units and different things that are there. But at the same time, my last little comment in the chat is we're continuing Bacon's view of exploiting the natural resources for the few, the wealthy, and the privileged culture. And the last resources are the sun and the wind. And so utilities that control the CPUC, that then, building solar farms, it's great. You need solar farms. I work with a few indigenous folks. I grew up in indigenous communities in North America and throughout the world. It's great that they can create their own energy in solar farms and have transmission. But the bulk of our population, we don't need as many giant solar farms out in the desert destroying, the environment things, just to transport it hundreds and hundreds of miles and try to give it to the people who need it. So, there are limiting, the CPUC is limiting who can control the sun, what your rooftop solar, balcony solar generation in the US is behind the rest of the world in allowing individuals to control their own energy. And the only way you can get there is if you play ball with the utilities and CPUC. So what really upsets me is for a long time, and today, every time you use a kilowatt of energy, 3/1000th of a cent, no matter who you are in California, goes into these epic funds. That's a surcharge on you. That's a unreported tax. And then they turn around and have these epic SGIB programs to give you rooftop solar and batteries for your house, but you have to be a homeowner or you don't qualify. So they have $1.2 billion in 2019 to do energy storage, okay? Well, 45% of those funds came from renters because 45% of Californians rent, and they have no way to even get back the benefits of their own money. So to me, I find it really offensive. And I agree with some of the earlier look at how we exploit people from a resource justice perspective. And I just see the same thing occurring now under the guise of we have to help the planet. Absolutely. We have to do all these things. But we have these fires in LA. It's unfortunate, hugely traumatic. But there are probably 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 homes that the CPUC gave $20, $30 million to put those Tesla power walls in those homes, and they all burned up, right? So I think, they need to really think about every individual community member. Now, I lead a startup, and so, I'm constantly pounding the wall, but I'm working with a few regional Sacramento community groups to help bring energy storage and things from a product we're looking to bring to market so that individuals can control that. But I'm also looking outside the US because I'm just too frustrated that these utility monopolies are not allowing each one of us to control that resource that comes down from the sky every day. Okay, so that's my perspective, and I put my email in there, and I'm willing to. I think Myra, some of your comments are right on for where they are, and Natalie's with the work that you folks are doing and how that worked. I'd love to see those extended to every one of those refrigerators that are all those constituents. It's great that you can go to these food deserts, you can get that, you can get good food, healthy produce, and different things. But when you bring it home, you still have that time lag of how was the refrigerator in your house, or your apartment, or your multifamily, living that you would. We really need to address it for everybody, just, not those who can afford it. So anyway, that's my
Yeah, no.
soapbox. Okay.
Absolutely. I absolutely think that you're hitting on something that was always bothersome about the way that the advanced energy community was written and what we were able to do. Which is why when we applied to do the transformative climate community for the city of Pomona, we included a direct to renter program. And so that has already launched in the last year. I didn't talk about it because I didn't work on it. That was some of my other colleagues. I only wanted to speak about the programs that I've been working on. But you're hitting on something that has always bothered me about these programs is that there is very little that goes to multifamily living. Even the multifamily programs that some of the RENs have done are to the benefit of the landlords and not to the benefit of the folks that are living in the home. And that has always been something that has been we don't want to add to the problem. Basically, we don't want to add to this renter issue already of, okay, so we gave them energy efficient light bulbs and technologies to put into their shared spaces and to put into some of these homes. And then the landlords turn around and start charging an extra $100 to $200 for those units, which is absolutely not what we want to see happen to these homes. And that is why when we developed the TCC Pomona project, the direct to renter portion of that project is direct to the renter. We don't want it to go to the landlord. It is meant to go to that person that is putting their time and money really into their unit. I don't even want to get into how much time and money I put into the unit that I currently live in. And then I don't get to do anything with that now that I've been able to purchase a home. I'm like, I'm just leaving this here for whoever's next. And I know my landlord is going to charge more because I decided to do these repairs on my own personal soapbox. But anyway, I think the other thing to be aware of is, and something that a lot of folks, I don't know how much you all have been paying attention to, the net energy metering that the PUC and Gavin Newsom signed off on for our homes. So even the folks that do want to do solar on their home are about to be like, or they already are because it already happened, because this is what I dealt with for the Advanced Homes project. They're not going to even get to see the best benefit that they could if I've already having spent that money on their solar for their roof. So these are things that people are telling us, and I'm trying to build into my programs, and we're trying to go through, and then the funding is dependent on politics. And that is my other problem with the way that these programs are built, is it's really dependent on who's in office. And that is what's going to get in the way of us really being resilient in these processes as well.
No, I agree. So anyway, I appreciate everybody letting my emotions kind of express out here. And you can see some of my comments that I sent to Elisa. Elisa? Is that how you pronounce her name? Sorry.
Elsa.
Elsa. Sorry. I have phonetic deficiencies when I visually do things. But so, like I said, my email's there. I actually were looking into a program to get with Ben out at the center and maybe get a few students to do some intern work, to do some assessments on what the energy is actually used in the house. See, my belief is that every apartment, every customer can put between 3 to 5 kilowatts in their home. Instead of having a big power wall in your garage, you put 3 battery units around your home for your fridge in different places, and they add up to 3 to 5 kilowatts. And you own it, you plug it into a wall outlet. Utility can't tell you what to do. Your landlord can't tell you what to do because you own that side of the wall outlet. And every day you charge it up and discharge it. You put your own, if they will allow you to have a solar balcony, or you put a solar shade on the inside your window. I mean, there are all these things you can do to augment your energy every day. And I believe we have to just do this, in opposition on our own, or the CPUC and the robber barons of energy today are still trying to lay claim to ownership to all this other resources, not letting it come down to us. And they decry the fact that they give all these discounts and things to marginal people and the lower income folks that are out there. But if they just gave them little opportunities, some respect, these kinds of things by just, giving somebody 10% off on their energy bill, sign up for community solar, you get 20%, no one gets 20%. Everybody gets 9 to 10 max. Well, that's $10 a month, buy their things. A family can't take their kids to McDonald's for that. But if you could leverage getting those electrons filled up at night or in the morning to these portable battery energy storage units, and then use them between 5 to 8 or 4 to 9, you're saving anywhere from 90 cents to $1.50 a day. And they don't want to see it that way, right? So anyway, I am trying to work with the SMUD board of directors and some others, and PG&E is now, it's been 5 years. They're starting to think about it, but they want to see the proof is in the pudding. And that's why I'm looking to work with some folks out of Sac State, and my alma mater, part of it is Davis, and then some folks in the Bay Area for what we're trying to do. So if you have anybody who's kind of interested in kind of what we're doing and like to talk about it, or maybe have some students who want to explore things, please have them get in touch with me.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, we can
Okay.
try.
I do need to head out from the meeting here. I don't know if some of you are aware, there's starting to be a monthly national energy justice platform going on once a month. The first one starts the 21st next week. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Elsa.
I'm not sure, but maybe we can make sure that, yeah, if you want to email me,
I can put it in the chat.
That gets out. But yeah, I'll turn it over to Carice if you have more questions.
Thanks. Yeah, a broad question for our speakers today. I was wondering, what are some of the ways that you see as being meaningful and effective for prioritizing environmental justice in the spaces where it's not yet prioritized or even acknowledged? And I think this was sparked by Natalie when you were saying that in the RFPs, when there's that one sentence in there that you can jump off of, and how do we get that one sentence, and how do we get people to recognize that that's something that we need to bake into our plans?
That comes with like policy change. Unfortunately, we have to force them to do it. But I think that it also comes with showing up to various meetings that there are across the state that your typical person isn't aware of. There's something called the Low Income Oversight Board that is and anyone can participate in these meetings, that is very interested in being super aware of rate changes and hikes and how that's affecting the low income folks across the state of California. There's also the DACAG, the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group, that goes over everything across the CPUCs. Well, not everything, sorry, whatever the energy programs are. And you can hear, where that is. They put together a lot of letters that are meant to go towards folks. There was this, I don't know if you all have discussed the order that Newsom put out late last year about getting rid of any inefficient, energy efficient programs that he'd like to see. I was on a 9 p.m. scheduled 8 a.m. call to discuss this basically, because it does seem like there's I don't want to use that word. There's just this hyper focus on auditing these programs. And so the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group has put together a letter being very upset with Newsom's office for not having even come to them to discuss what getting rid of some of these programs is going to look like. And so I think that it's going, and I feel like that person saying you have to talk to your policymakers and make sure that they know that this is important to you and that this is what they want to see written into these programs, basically. But it's participating in these groups and being able to see how that collective action and telling people that that's what you want to see has to be done. As crazy as it sounds, I keep using that word, as wild as it sounds. California is in a better place than some other places when it comes to writing these programs, because we're not necessarily getting rid of our existing equity language. And the CPUC does have that equity framework strategic plan that they're supposed to be following. So we need to stay on them about, that these things are written in, that their implementers, their program implementers are weaving that into the programs that they are setting up. So Los Angeles County has had to be very clear in those RFPs that certain programs have to meet equity standards from that strategic plan that was written out. So I think that answered the question. Sorry, I can go off on many tangents, but yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I know we have a couple more questions, but just to zoom it out a little bit again, I'm curious to hear what each of y'all think about this framework of human rights. I think that we talk about that a little bit, like energy is a human right, water is a human right. And there's a lot of discourse about how effective that might be, especially kind of in our current world and how that's respected or disrespected. So yeah, I guess I'm curious, especially when we're thinking about degrowth or frameworks where like, there isn't infinite energy resources available, whether it's fossil fuel or mineral or any other. If the language of human rights is then potentially kind of just exacerbating this idea of, well, we have to get everybody access to energy. If that's the framework that will really get us to a place where people are able to access the energy needs that they have without this kind of infinite exploitation and extraction of the earth. If either of y'all have thoughts on that, be great.
I don't know that I have deep thoughts on it. I wish you all asked such good questions, and I feel like I'm very base level. But I think that the idea really is that we this feels very existential to me all of a sudden. I'm just like, we didn't ask to be born, but we don't need to be mad at people for being alive. The other side of it too. And so my idea, my thinking behind it is not necessarily that everybody should have all this access to energy to be able to run all the lights and have all the AC on and all of these things, but that the important thing is that people have access to energy in some way, and that it's not criminalized that folks are trying to just survive. And that idea, I really think it comes down to that societal thing that we've been talking about of this like forever growth that we need to put a cap on. And there's, I feel like it comes down to this like central feeling of just being and allowing folks to just be. And I feel like I'm going off on a wild tangent right now, but I think that that's more of what I'm thinking about when it comes to energy being a human right. Not that it's necessarily everybody's right to use an exorbitant amount of energy, as much as it is that folks should have access to be able to charge their cell phones, to be able to have access to the world around them, and to sit in a library and be able to be cool and not be overheating during these extreme heat events, or be warm during these cold events. And I think that it shouldn't be that the elites of the world are the ones that have access to all of this. Like, I don't know. Maida, please make me sound better than that.
Yeah, I think the discourse of human rights has also been problematized a lot. It often is used to pursue, particular agendas, right? Political agendas. And it often also comes with also notions of individualism and like the self. So, liberal ideologies. And I think that when I think of as a right, maybe human rights is not the best term, but what I would like to think about with right as also the air, access to clean air, access to clean water, access to food, healthcare, is also thinking about really interconnectedness and community and the collective and the commons. So changing one thing is not enough. Just saying, oh, it's a human right, but then not changing the systems or truly our values, like a radical shift, is not enough, right? As you're saying, Elsa. So, and that's a much bigger challenging project, right? So, and it's truly changing how we view nature, as we see ourselves as really nature, as belonging to nature. And that's really different than the ideas that we have today, in which we believe that nature is just available for us to use it to our convenience. That's my sense. Francisco has a
Have, oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a direct response that I can go over to Paco?
Not a response as much as more of just another example of one of the things that I see kind of proliferating across Southern California is the use of express lanes on our highways. And my question is, why is it that someone who has more money should have access to not sit in traffic? Like, that's kind of what I think about it too. I'm like, why would we not do public transportation so that everybody has the ability to get to work at the same time? And why is it that if I have less money means I have to sit on the 405 for 30 more minutes than the guy who makes $50,000 more than me, who gets to write off that he spent $11 to travel 11 miles? So I don't even know what it is. I refuse to use them, but anyway.
I've heard a counter argument to that that's actually somewhat convincing, and it's let those who have more pay more, right? It's like, oh, they've got
Yeah.
more money, so let them pay.
Right.
And they
But then
pay
provide the
for our-
infrastructure
they
for
pay
other
our
people.
roads.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of, and I was like, oh, yeah, but I don't know, like maybe you can convince me otherwise.
I think I'd buy into it if there was adequate public transit, then I would buy into
Yes,
that one.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, no, I'm with you. My question was a lot, let's see, less big picture, I guess. And well, yeah, I just wanted to, I was very interested in something that you were saying about like trying to install community chargers or promote that. And the question is, have you kept tracking the situation with the chargers already installed? And have you seen that they actually do share them, or is it that somebody just like took it for themselves?
Well, so we've only installed one so far, and we only had funding to do at the end of the day, I think up to 5, or no, up to 9. And so we are still looking at closing out this project through 2025. But we will have access to see how the community is using that charger. And so something that has been more seen across at least this area is that people install them in their garages. And so we're not installing it in the garage. We're trying to install it in an accessible area of the driveway of this home. And so that's with the hope that the community can then use it, and then we'll be able to track it. I'll say that I didn't like the idea when my team came to me and said, we need you to do outreach for this. I was like, who said this was a good idea? I was ready. I was like, all right, let's see what the community says, because they're going to be up in arms that we are asking them to open their charger to their neighbor. Like, they're going to be ticked off. I am very happy to say I was wrong. We had so much interest in this program, and people want to open up their just a little parking spot right in front of their house to their neighbors, because there's also a small opportunity that they make a little bit of money off of their neighbors charging off of their charger, but it is still a discounted rate that someone would be paying at a like a for-profit charger in a different area. And they care about it. They said, yeah, there's nowhere to charge. No one in my neighborhood buys an EV because we don't have anywhere to charge them, and none of us have the money to pay to have a new charger installed. And so we're waiting to see. The jury's still out on that one, but I'm happy to say I was wrong. People were very interested in providing chargers to their neighborhoods. So, yeah.
I was expecting the opposite. I'm so glad that was the outcome of this.
I turned to my director. I was like, who designed this? You all are out of your minds. And they were not.
I'm really glad. Can I have one more really quick? Or yeah? Okay. You're in LA, and so the topic of the moment is the wildfires. Has your org been responding in some way to this, or what are the changes there?
One of the things that happened with the pandemic is that we went fully remote. We do have offices, but folks are not in them at this point in time. And so people are kind of scattered about. And for the most part, our participants in the Advanced Homes Project, we've been working with them to determine if their systems are still working how they should be. One of the big selling points that we did for the Advanced Homes Project was telling folks that when there are natural disasters, the idea is that you'll be able to use your battery so that if you have medically necessary items, they are not going to be turned off. You're going to still be able to have power and AC if let's say it's a PSPS event because of extreme heat or anything along those lines. And for the most part of our 34 people, 3 people had issues. So 30 people didn't have any issues, and we were able to make sure that their systems were still good to go and they were able to do that. And then we had folks reaching out to us like, there's ash all over my solar panel. What do I do? And we were like, please do not get on your roof. And so we're developing how that's going to be cleaned off for them so that they don't have to deal with that. Because one of the things that we did learn once we did a little more thinking about our demographics for the advanced energy community is that a low-income homeowner in LA County is more than likely going to be at the age of 60 or over. So they're going to have had purchased their home a long time ago. And so we don't want to put them in any kind of danger or any kind of safety issues with having this new technology on their home. So that's been more of how we've been changing or addressing the issues there. We have education is another aspect of what we do with the Energy Coalition. So they've already started on some modules for some of the K through 12 programs that we have talking about climate change's effect. We already had that climate change on fire, but like talking specifically about like what it means to have to evacuate in these regions and all of that. So trying to update our materials to what we're allowed to do basically, because they are through the utilities that some of these programs are being paid for. What else have we done? And then just generally, I don't have my staff doing outreach right now for the next iteration of the refrigeration program. Their health isn't, their health is more important to me, and we will get the refrigeration started again, probably in February, March or so. So kind of a little pause. Let's focus on some internal planning and addressing needs as they come through January, and then go from there. Yeah. He sounds like a motorcycle right now. I'm sorry if you hear that.
Oh, good. Yeah, thank you both so much, and definitely hope you stay safe down there and everybody is, able to stay in their homes or come back to them. I think we're running right up against time, so I'll just thank you both again, and also just, I forgot to say this at the beginning, but thanks so much for stepping in last minute. We actually, our original speaker had to house family who was evacuated from the fires, so it's obviously all kind of connected back to the reason why we're here around climate change and all the things that are coming from it and that are underpinning it. So just very grateful for everybody to be here. Thanks for everybody who showed up and stuck around, and we'll see you all next week, hopefully, from 3:30 to 4:30. Chris, do you want to plug next week's talk quickly?
Sure. Yeah, we have the honor of hosting Linnea Jackson, who's the general manager at the Hoopa Valley Public Utilities District. She does everything from energy to water to fire, utility-related things up there in the valley, and she'll be talking about microgrids and tribal energy resilience. So look out for the blurb that we'll be sending out soon. And I want to echo Elsa and thank you again both so much.
Thank you. And just one thing, next week, actually, Natalie will be here in Davis. We're going to be having the closing and a reception, and that's at the Arc. It overlaps with this, but after this, you can come over. The program ends in 5, so you have time to make it in at 5. We'll have a reception, so there'll be food, and you can talk to Natalie and other of our EJ leaders and continue these conversations.